Namaskar to one and all. I, Bhavya Malukkani, a very proud alumni of International School of Informatics and Management, IIIM College, MBA Batch 2017 and 19. On the behalf of our college, I welcome you all to the interesting webinar on the topic, Will India see a workplace discipline or it is just a myth? I'm lucky to be a part of this webinar series called Dharohar, initiated by IIIM College, where the alumni who has now become the industry experts share their knowledge and experiences with us. So today, I welcome Mr. Rounak Parekh, who is part of management consulting team of PwC PricewaterhouseCoopers India advisory practice, which shares services, outsourcing advisory, and finance transformation being his key competency. Sir is a merit holder in MBA from our college, Batch 2006-8, with a dual specialization in finance and marketing. He also holds a postgraduate degree in industrial relations and personnel management. Sir has been working for more than 12 years, which includes setting up global business services, shared services, process transition and transformation, and project management of large-scale projects with multiple stakeholders. He has delivered project working along both national and international clients in multiple geographies. International clients with on-site experience in United States, UAE, and other SAARC countries like Sri Lanka, etc. Also, there were many off-site experiences of him with most of the major economies of the world, like United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, etc. Sir has managed various projects of finance and accounts, process transition, process improvement, and research projects during his previous engagement with the companies like Britannia, Microsoft, and a startup in the online sports media space. Most of his assignments included capacity building and training of large-sized teams. He has transversed industries like CPG, pharma, IT-enabled services, TMT, banking, cement, consumer and automotive lighting, consumer electronics, and health tech, textile, etc. Coming to the topic, will India ever see a discipline or it is just a myth? As per the Cambridge Dictionary, discipline is the training that makes people more willing to obey or able to control themselves. Sound rudimentary, right? But that's the whole point of having this session today. So, here, our guest appearance coming from that mouth. Let's hear it from the Rounak Parekh's speech. Thank you, sir. Please.
I hope you guys can hear me and see my screen, right? Okay. So, yeah, that was heavy, right? So let's put things into perspective. So this is what the entire timeline looks like of what probably I just spoke to you guys. So this is the entire journey. So I passed out in 2008 April, right? So by the time exams are over, we await our results and all of that, and I was few of the lucky ones from my batch to get placed even before the placements started. So this was with a startup company, and actually the founders were based out of US, and we started the operations in India. It was a small team, roughly around 10 people who started the startup, and interestingly, we were in a space where we wanted to compete with the likes of Crick Info. So we started with that, did a IPL exclusive for a couple of years, and then with the meltdown, when the meltdown hit US roughly around, it started in 2008 itself, but it impacted majorly around in 2009. And as the situation with startups are, when the meltdown happens in the market, they have to roll back. Like most of the startups are facing the heat right now in the COVID situation as well. So similar situation happened. They had to roll back their operations from India and go back to US. So first job, you get into a first job within 1.5 years. You are into a situation which is not very nice, right? So luckily, again, within a month's time, there was a opportunity with Microsoft India. They were planning to launch Windows 7, right? And it came as a external consultant, not a employee for them. So worked on the Windows 7 launch program where I conducted workshops across India. I was a program manager for that. So getting all the desktop applications vendors, something like a Skype or VLC player or Adobe, so you name it. So all desktop application vendors were called to the workshops. They were trained on the Windows 7 platform so that they can migrate their applications. So again, an interesting piece that lasted for around 6 months. That was a contract as a consultant with them. Again, back to square one. So then an opportunity came from it was somebody referred me to Britannia, and now it was referred to into a finance team. Now, given the work that I was doing in the sports media and all the program management, it took me roughly around 2.5 months to convince the stakeholder in Britannia, to give me that opportunity. So we started discussing this roughly around Feb 2010, and I got into the company around end of April that year. So again, started in the shared service space. It was like 2 or 3 months getting trained into all the aspects of accounts receivables, payables, payroll, etc. Right, and then I made a move to the corporate finance team, which was into their stat reporting. I'm not sure how many of you understand what a listed entity has to go through in terms of compliance of the financial numbers. So I was part of the team which was preparing the final numbers, getting into the market, getting the annual reports done, all the AGM preparation. So that journey lasted for around 4.5 years when I got an opportunity from PwC. And this happened roughly around September of 2014 when I joined them. And then if you see the right side of the slide, it's few of the projects, the big ones which I have been part of. Most of these are multi-million dollar projects and global projects, and not just based out of India. So the first one was pretty interesting, where I was in Sri Lanka for around 3.5 months as a financial controller for a pharma company's Lanka operations. And interestingly, they were restructuring their own business, right? So from a distributor model to a in-house model. So I was the one who was helping their MD in Sri Lanka to set up the entities, to plan the finances better, getting the working capital arranged, all of that. So that journey, if you see, I'll not call out all the projects, but if you see from there in 2000, September 2014 till now. So the recent one, the project I am part of, this started roughly around last year, March, April, and I think I'll go on to this till the end of the year most likely. So this is a big setup of a $65 billion US company, and this is a shared service setup across the globe. They are creating 6 centers. India will be a biggest center with roughly around 5,000 people in few years' time. So for my engagement and my team's engagement, we are responsible, to transition roles and responsibilities from 40 different countries, and roughly around more than 400 people, so to say. So this project, I'll share an anecdote with this is, interestingly, I had never traveled to US before this project came in, and when it started, within 6 months, I traveled to US 4 times, and it has been a pretty crazy experience, being part of such a large project, where you travel for a couple of days, you land US first time, you land there on a Sunday. You do a couple of days in one of the cities. I was in Texas, so it's a town called Plano, which is near Dallas, for a couple of days. And the third day morning, I flew to New York, did a meeting again for a couple of hours, and just flew back to India. And it was like 3 days, not even 3 days in US, and 4 days in flying time. So that's how the US story in my life started. So that's what is a summary of what I have done till now. Uh, just the reference, if you can read through all the industries that I have worked through, and majority of the variations or in terms of exposure came in after joining PwC in terms of different industries and different kind of work. Uh, Also, if I'm not sure again if you understand what a shared service or a global business center is. So let's say large corporations or larger companies, what happens is every country or even every business unit, so to say, will have their own accounts and finance team, own HR team, and this is a decentralized model. and now you and the processes will be fragmented, and it's again it's not very effective and optimized kind of ways of working. So what happens is we consolidate everything into a location which is feasible in terms of talent, which is feasible in terms of cost, which is feasible in terms of managing different time zone, languages, right? Especially given the English speaking skills that we have in India. So largely global business services or the shared service centers are created to leverage all of this. Though on the face of it, it looks like a just a cost optimization thing, but it is beyond that, where you build capability, you manage talent, so on and so forth. So that's what I have done. What it's about me. So let's move on to the topic, and please feel free to post your questions on chat. We'll take it during the course of the presentation and maybe towards the end, right? Okay. So workplace discipline, how such a rudimentary subject is relevant in today's scenario. Uh, so again, I'll not read through the slides. So I'll share small stories on every slide. So this topic again became relevant this year with a lot of companies started talking about this topic in terms of training their people on this, especially their middle and senior level management, right? Because people who come in for them, if you start posting discipline as a virtue on day one, that doesn't work. So you have to implicate a culture of workplace discipline. And for this discussion, we'll keep it around the white collar workforce, which is mostly to do with us for all practical purposes. Not the factory workers, the blue collar ones. We'll talk about the office executives. So if you see in a traditional uh, uh, world, what discipline meant, just read through the definition at the bottom from Lawrence Stein. So the words which come out when you look at discipline from a traditional sense is rules, regulations, detrimental behavior. So it's kind of you're trying to punish people for not following a way of working or a way of life or a code of conduct, right? So this is what was discipline traditionally, and the journey for discipline has been very interesting. It has also evolved with time, with the kind of changes in the workplace, the workforce. We'll talk about that shortly, and even the work itself. So this is a pretty interesting topic. It looks like a dull and rudimentary subject, but when you start looking at this topic in terms of respect of people, you'll realize that how discipline, just not in the workplace, even your day-to-day life, it matters the most, and it is one of the pillars which will set you for success. So, secrets of success. I think you guys had a session sometime back. So, before we go to secret of success, I think you need to lay the foundation pillars, and this is going to be one of them. Any questions up till now, Bhavya?
Yes, sir. Sir, I need to ask that you're talking about discipline in the traditional approach.
Yep.
So how can we say that the discipline has been changed across generations? Like today, 2020, we see discipline to another scenario, not just the traditional approach. So how can you say that it has been changed across generations?
Right. So let's go to the next slide to answer your question. Okay. So if you see, and I think, and I would presume that you guys do a lot of reading. So if you see how the generations have grown, and I'm talking about the century, which is 19th, and because that will be the kind of the modern history era, and which we can relate to mostly. So I'll not talk about the greatest and the silent generation. You'll not be able to relate. But if you start looking at generations from your grandfather till maybe now, and if you break that down into four parts, and now we are going to a Gen Alpha scenario, which is beyond 2014 onwards, but majorly talking about the four generations to set the context. So, what happened was with baby boomers, the generation which was there post 1946, they grew up in a period when there was major impact from the world wars, the economic depressions, right? So they had to build everything from scratch, and the approach was always uh, top down and autocratic. It was like, so to say, let's say somebody founded a company. Every direction, every decision had to be flew from the top to the bottom, and it was not the other way around to share ideas and all. That's how it started. We moved on to a Generation X then, which was like post 1965 era, and this you can understand if you relate to the movies of that era, especially the Bollywood ones, or even if you watch a certain Hollywood ones. The entire anger, or the role of the main lead, the kind of anger against the establishment. So that's how they wanted to break free from the entire autocratic era of ways of working, which was just after the world wars. So then came in the generation which was millennials, and again, to understand, they were the ones who saw the technology growing, right? So all your computers, your smartphones, everything came when they were of a certain age, and they started to understand things. And then we had the Gen Z who grew up with the technology around them. So computers and smartphones were part of life and way of life from that standpoint. Now, how discipline changed across these generations, if you see, because now your majority of the workforce, if you see the composition, your Gen Z and Gen Y is the majority of the workforce. That's why we say India has the youngest population, working population. And your middle level and the top level is majority, the domination is by the Gen X mostly, right? Gen Y is now moving to that stage. So now, how do you bridge a gap between the ways of working, way of life, the thought process between a Gen X to a Gen Z? So what companies realized is this can't be just done basis some communication and some guidelines which a company can give and people can follow. So what happened is there was a lot of investment started happening, and companies started training instead of the people who were joining companies, the freshers. They started focusing in terms of discipline, in terms of how to coach and how to talk to people and how to manage them. The training focus shifted towards the Gen X mostly, and the earlier Gen Y, the beginners in Gen Y. So even for me, I would fall under that category. So we have been, we get trained into subjects like how do you coach people, how do you give feedback, how do you manage expectations. So these are some of the training areas in terms of people management that we go through. And the newer generations, they go through a different set of programs, right? So let's say one of the things which my company does is, so I will attend a feedback session called giving feedback, the art of giving feedback. The next line to me would go to and attend. How do you appreciate a feedback, take it positively, and grow with that, right? So with that balance, companies started realizing how people. So it's still a long journey, but uh, given my 12 years of experience, the earlier part, where even I was pretty scared to approach senior folks. Just being the aura around them. But it's not that anymore. It's like more friendly. You can walk up to somebody senior. You can talk to them freely. So that's how the entire mindset has changed, and it's still changing, but a long way in the last 10 years itself that I have been part of the industry. Any questions for you?
No, sir, sorted now.
Okay, so let's just move ahead. Okay, so I will put things into perspective with a small example here. So if you see this graph, it's a simple layout in terms of how discipline has progressed from a traditional to a progressive to a more collaborative environment. So when I say progressive, progressive is the time when companies realized they needed to have a grievance redressal, people can go and raise their concerns, and that was a progressive era of discipline. Where as an employee, if I had a problem to be addressed, right? If I was bullied by somebody, if not spoken nicely by managers, I can go and raise my concern. But now it's more of a positive and collaborative where you can go and have a free willing chat with people. You can talk to them. So that's on the left side of the screen. On the bottom, if you see, it's how we have evolved in terms of working. So work till few years back, traditionally meant that you have to go to office, right? You have to be in office for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, and in some cases beyond that. So in some cases, the joke is you get into office before your boss gets in, and then you move out when your boss calls it a day. So from that mindset, when the entire IT and the shared services boom happened, so it changed to flexi working hours, people working from home for a day in a week, you know, where every time you don't need to be in office to do things, and a lot of it is also based on the growth of technology in terms of the internet infrastructure, laptops, company moving from desktop to laptops. So it's a gradual shift which happened, and then came the COVID, and it has hit us really very badly. So I returned from US for my last trip in first week of Feb this year, and then my team was there working on this project, and we had to do a emergency evacuation. When the COVID hit, and they had to come back roughly around end of Feb, early March, if so to say. So when they came back and the entire lockdown happened, people were not allowed to go to office. So if you see now, companies are not talking about, if you see all the discussions online, all webinars, nobody is saying that people are not going to work from home. There are discipline issues. People are not thinking about that. The discussion is around three things. One is, how do you keep your people engaged? How do you take care of them? Ensure that well-being of your employees is critical, right? Companies are talking about that. And the third thing is, how do you ensure that you can maintain a work-life balance, given that now there are no boundaries between your home and your office. So you can't. So for me, so I'll give you an example from my life. So when this came and hit in March, so I have been in home since last 3 or 4 months. So uh, what has happened is, I start my day roughly around 8 o'clock in the morning with calls, and I end roughly around 10:30, 11, and there are days where it goes to midnight. So initially, I was also not able to understand how do I manage this. This was going crazy from 8 to around 12 o'clock in the night, or 1 o'clock in the night. There was no ending because there is no line to draw between your office and home. So we realized that, and then what we started doing was, because we were working with multiple geographies, we couldn't manage to draw a line between that. But what we started doing was, we started taking breaks in between, right? So if there is dull period in the afternoon, you take a break. If there is a dull period in the evening, you take a break, and then you come back. So you manage your work and life intermingled, both together, and it can't be like from this hour to this hour you are in office, and this hour to this hour you are in home, because you are in home all the time. So now people, I'll share another example. So when we get on calls now, there are senior folks and other people also. So there are a noise of a whistle of a cooker going right. Your family walking around, kids coming onto the video calls. So all of this happens. So initially it was awkward. Now everybody has accepted that this is going to happen. This is the way of life. So even on formal calls, until unless it's a very formal call with senior stakeholders, with clients, it's all okay. People can move around. Your family can come and talk to you for a second in between calls. You can request people to attend something urgent at home for a couple of minutes during a call itself. So all of this has become so normal that it doesn't feel like you're under stress now working from home, and it has become a 24-hour kind of work environment. But what is becoming challenging for companies is, how do they keep people engaged in this entire scenario? How do you keep them engaged? Because in your office, there are parties, there are events. So a few things which even we started doing with my team is, we have virtual coffee breaks. Every now and then we connect in the evening. We don't talk about work. We just connect for half an hour. There are 15, 20, 25, whatever the team size is. You just bring your coffee. You talk casual about your life, about your family, about your personal stuff. You have coffee with the team. Some of the folks have gone ahead and done dinner parties online, dance parties online. There are online gaming sessions which are happening. So there are engagement activities which are happening. Companies are realizing that they need to invest and do all of this. But now that it has been like 3 or 4 months, the next thing is, how do you ensure that it doesn't become depressing for people to work from home all the time and there is nobody around, right? You don't see people physically. So that is the next thing we're getting into, and let's see how companies are able to solve that. But that is where we are heading. So if you see working from office for set of hours, ensuring that your boss is happy from the work hours and not by your work, to coming to a situation where you're working from home and company is not talking about discipline but about your well-being. So just imagine how the mindset shift has happened in the entire discipline scenario. Bhavya, any
There is
questions?
another question. Yes, sir. So I
Yeah,
was asking that you have told us about the working from home,
yeah,
all scenarios. But if I ask that now to get normal to the normal going to the office and staying back with the working from home, because now the situations are altering. COVID-19 has been thoroughly improving nowadays. So people are coming back to offices. So how to be back to normalcy with
sure.
that time schedule, that 9 to 5, without talking about working from home? Because now it is all done. We are staying back with the working from home. Now we have to get normal. So how to get normal with this schedule?
Okay. So we can go to the next slide, and you guys can read through this. But let me tell you a few things from service industry perspective. First of all, so again, to normalize, till now, companies have not started calling people or the workforce. Majority of the companies have not. The bigger ones have not. Smaller companies, again, the infrastructure was missing, which they are building on now, and they have got 50% of staff alternate days or 30% of the staff every 2 days, right? So on rotation basis, they are calling people. But the bigger companies, what they're coming up with is you will see roughly around from 20% of, at the downside, roughly around 40 to 50% of the people working from home permanently going forward from here. So
Yes, sir.
that is one part. Now the people who are going to go back to office, how do you normalize for them? So the biggest factor would be care and patience with those people, right? They are coming with a very rough time, right? People have forgone their pay, salaries. There have been pay cuts. People have lost their jobs. Job promotions, increments have been stalled. Everything has happened, right? So the biggest factor would be patience and care, right? You can't upfront start expecting that your productivity will be 100% on day one. So you will have to give people some time to settle down again and keep things very clear. Keep them engaged. Don't overload them with work on the first day itself. Take it step by step. So it would be kind of a re-onboarding when you join the company for the first time, right? You go through an onboarding program, you go through some events. So people will have to again form some structure around that, and that is what companies have started thinking. And there have been discussion around how do you bring back the morale of people again. It's fine. People have worked like anything during these tough times. So the first 3 months we have seen productivity gain when people have started from home, and now there are some companies who have started seeing that there is a productivity decline because people have started feeling depressed. There is quite a bit of workforce which need people around, which are extrovert. They can't be left in isolation, right? So even with the online events and all, when they start going back, you will need to give them time, do events, do team bonding exercises again, and then slowly you have to bring them back to normal, and that's where we'll take it from. So this is for the first time such a thing has hit us in the modern times. So there is no straitjacket approach which all the companies can follow. Every company will follow some kind of a mechanism, and they will be learning each day. So it will be an agile approach, so to say. You learn every day, and then take up learnings and revise your approach next day. So that's how it's going to be. I hope I have answered your question here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me just go to the next slide. Okay. So what does it mean to have a positive approach to discipline? Okay. So till now, what used to happen is when you join a company, you sign a lot of documents, you get a code of conduct, right? You get a policies around your dress code, policies around work timing, leave policies. all of that. You used to get hard copies. You just sign it, and you get a copy of that, and you're supposed to read it yourself. So that is still there. You sign a copy of that. You do digital signature or physical ones. But now what has happened is we have slowly started moving towards more on conversations. So around all these policies and procedures and code of conduct, when you onboard, there are sessions where companies talk about this, and they don't call trainers, they call their own senior staff or people, somebody like me, people like me would be called, right, to share my experience, to share real life, let's say, how do you book your leave on the system. So there are buddy programs where people, tag to one person who is there in the system for some time. They take them through this. There are sessions where people talk about real life experiences. How do you do small things, right? Even uh, the smallest of things. Where do you get water? Where are the washrooms? You walk around with people. You make them comfortable for the first few days. So it's not about documentation. It's about conversation, right? Again, with this, dropping the negativity comes in, right? You don't just force discipline on people, right? You just don't do it negatively. You do it very positively, right? You don't say discipline as a word or as a concept on day one. It's gradually people see how others existing employees are behaving, and that's where you start picking up the cues, and you go ahead from there. Then let's say somebody commits a mistake. You have to see what kind of mistake, what's the impact of that error, right? And not just blindly go ahead and punish that person, reprimand them, suspend them, right? Send them on a pay cut, do all of that. So it's about, second chances, so to say, but also you have to evaluate what kind of judgment of error has happened, and what is the impact on the organization, right? So to say, it's more about how you talk to people, right? How you converse, how you explain things to them, right? And you'll have to do a lot of this with the newer generation, right? So I'll give an example. So I have been part of certain feedback sessions with my team. So what happens is, let's say I give them a feedback that your behavior was not appropriate on certain occasions. They come back and ask for certain examples. What was the real life scenario when the behavior was not right? What went wrong? How was it perceived? So you have to be very objective when you talk to people, right? Don't be subjective, especially with the new generation. Being subjective, being very theoretical doesn't work. You have to be inclusive. You have to be very open and objective when you're talking to people now. So that's where we are.
So
Coming
what
back,
you are saying, sorry. So what you're
yeah,
saying making sense. But how do you consciously create an environment of self-discipline with this hectic work schedule, difficulties in managing work-life balance, etc.? Because being self-motivated is one thing and being company motivated is one thing. We have to be engaged in the work and not only be contributed to the company only. So my question is how to be self-disciplined and self-motivated in terms of work-life balance.
okay. So okay, let me not go to a slide for this. So I'll share three stories from my journey. So when I was in Britannia, my so I was in Bangalore and my family was in Jaipur. So my brother met an accident. It was a major accident, and so I was just upset with that, and my boss came and I told him. So he went ahead and he spoke to the GM in finance and accounts department, and he just told him that. So the GM, maybe he was busy with something. He came out after a couple of hours. He came. I used to sit in a cubicle outside my boss's cabin. So he came out. He asked me about what has happened, and then he went inside the cabin. The door was open. He tells my boss that ask this guy to leave immediately, go to Jaipur, or just get on the next flight and go to Jaipur. It has to be taken care of by the company. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Just send him home for 3, 4, 5 days, whatever he needs. So that is how you keep people motivated, keep people, loyal to the company, keep people disciplined in what they are doing. Right? These are the examples. Another example I'll tell you. So in my current role, when I joined PwC, I am on the road. By that I mean I travel roughly around 80 to 90% of the year, right? So I'm not home. If I am traveling domestically, I come back home only on weekends. Or if I'm traveling international, so it's like maybe in a month or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on the location I'm at in. So when I joined and all of this started, I after a couple of trips, I spoke to my manager that I come back and I get, let's say I was coming back from my international trip every Saturday morning, and Monday evening I was flying out. So I told him that every Monday coming to office is it's just very difficult. I come back on a Saturday morning, I flew out again Monday evening. So he told me that you don't need to come to office until unless there is some kind of a meeting which needs to be done physically. You take care of your family, you do your work. We see that the work is happening, we don't bother from where are you working. And see, now with the COVID environment, what is happening? People are working from home. So nobody is bothered from where you're working until unless the work is getting delivered, right? So this is another example. Third example, in 2018, I was part of a big project again with a banking client, and this was kind of a big project with $400 million investment from the bank. And I was the one who was, doing the financial reporting for the project. Where do we stand? So there were around 18 different service providers for you name all the big technology and consulting companies who were involved, and we had around roughly 1,000 people working on the project. So in the middle of the project, my father he had to undergo a surgery, a heart surgery, and I was supposed to travel Monday morning to Bangalore, and I traveled to Delhi instead to see my family and to ensure that surgery happens properly. And every Monday for that project used to be critical in terms of the delivery of this financial report. So, and it was so critical that it used to go till the top, right? If you don't get a numbers on Monday, you can't plan for the week. That was the situation. Now the entire client team, my team, everybody understood the situation, and they were okay to support me when I had to go and manage my family, right? So they halted the entire process for a day, and they gave me time. The surgery happened on Tuesday. I was able to close my work. So that is how you motivate, how you bring in discipline, how you keep people engaged, right? You have to make it real for them. You have to ensure that you take care of your people to ensure that they take care of the work. It's kind of vice versa. It just can't be money. You X number of dollar or rupees which companies pay. That's fine, but it's on a motivation and on an emotional side when companies support. That is how you get in return like disciplined, loyal, and hardworking people, right? Hope I answered your question, Bhavya.
Yes, sir. So you are saying that the company should also be engaging with you, not
Yes.
just, yeah, okay, sir. Got that.
Yeah. It can't be one way. It can't be. It can never be. And it can't be that he's trying to engage and you don't engage. Then also it's just down the hill. You can't succeed with that kind of a scenario as well. So
Even then, discipline will be a burden if it will be one way. Yes, sir.
okay. So let's close what we're trying to say here, and then we can take more questions. So I'll give you some examples, right? So, and these examples are from my company and from other companies where we work, right? So, with the focus on sexual harassment going on, there are mandatory training courses. And when this started, it was very gender biased, where the training used to be focused on a male harassing a female. So you were being trained on that, and how do you don't do that. But now it's not gender biased; it's gender neutral. So just see, you're disciplining people, but you are also coaching them in a way that harassment can happen both ways, right? So this is a very real life example. Another example, if you read the center one, so this is from one of the companies where code of conduct is not meant to provide a specific guidance. Instead, it's a principle based guidance where they talk about scenarios, they talk about principles, and then you follow them with your own interpretation of it. It's not that a straight jacket approach where you are asked you do ABCD. No, they will tell you how to do ABCD, and then how you do ABCD is up to you, right? So that's how things have changed. But going forward, again, how things are changing and how they should. So policies are again getting renamed as guiding principles in companies, right? Uh, update to the policies. So when I started, the policies in companies used to be very archaic. Our policy frame 20 years back was still in circulation. Now it's very real time. They keep on updating their policy every few months, or there is a defined cycle. The policies are available for employees online on a portal in most of the companies, where they can go and share that feedback, so that company can take that real life example, update their policies accordingly, right? There are trainings on how to coach people, how to guide, how to mentor, right? So in most of the companies now, you have a people manager who is kind of your manager, and then there is somebody called a mentor for you, somebody more senior who can guide and coach you in addition to your people manager. So these are the some examples which are companies are doing and they need to do going forward. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say, it's not a myth anymore, right? Discipline is very much there as part of our life, especially the work life, and it has seen an evolution, right? And it will keep on changing every now and then. Discipline will change, will evolve, right? It can't be just punishment based expected behavior. So I've demonstrated how it has grown. It will keep on changing. This will not end here. So with changing times, you will see how discipline evolves going forward. So that's it from my side. We can take more questions if there are any.
So there was one question from me only. You talked about in a slide about watch out challenges during the evolution of discipline. So what are these watch out challenges?
Okay, let's go back.
Yes.
Okay. So see, challenges is the mindset shift which is there between generations, right? Which you feel at home as well with your parents, right? So when you are dealing with people of certain age, the same age, let's say, not certain age, in office, it's not going to be easy, right? So you start training them. So training and communication is very key when it comes to discipline. And discipline can't be interpreted in the armed forces way. It has to be very real. It has to be people driven, right? So that is the biggest watch out which is there. Second is, which I was telling earlier, you have to be very objective and very practical when you give examples to people. You can't just put up, let's say, if I put up the slide and I read through it, you'll not be engaged. It will not make sense to you until I bring in real life stories from my work life, from my environment, right? So it has to be real for people. So these are the two key watchouts, and I think companies are on the right direction on working on these. I think majority of the big companies are on this. The others are following suit, and soon I think you will see all. I think across segments of industries and company sizes, you will see how they're going to invest more and more towards people coaching and training. Technical skills, it's one side, but on the behavioral and emotional skills, you will see more and more training coming in. And even there are talks of reforming the education systems along these lines, right? And I think if faculty members are there on the session, I think they can also shed some light on how the education system is also thinking about bringing in elements of behavioral and emotional skills. So yeah, that's where we are.
Yes, sir. The next question is from our audience. They want you to suggest any 2 points for our young budding managers.
Okay, so first is start connecting with people, right? Start connecting. So start with this. Okay, so here are my coordinates on this slide. I can put it up on the chat window if required, if you guys need it. So start connecting with people, right? Start forming relationships. That is key, right? With your faculty members, with your friends, and if you can get hold of few seniors, start talking to them. It's not about approaching for a job or for interview, right? But you have to start talking to people. You have to learn, right? And learning will never come just from the books or just from watching some videos or training or webinars. You have to talk to people. You have to make it real, right? So reach out to people. Reach out to anybody you like. Take contacts of the alumnus from the college and start reaching out. Start dropping messages. I'm not sure everybody will respond, but some of us will definitely respond as and when we can. But surely we can do that. We can arrange for one-to-one connects where we can do small group sessions, talk about real life experiences. That is very key, right? And from a subject matter standpoint, you read your college books, but start reading. Start reading. Read whatever you like. Read newspaper. Read online articles. Read books. Whatever you like, but you have to read. There is no other way, right? There is absolutely no other way. Audiovisual medium is fine, but when you start reading, and I'll share a tip. Let's say you pick up one topic, right? Uh, Pick up that topic, read one article, right, and then start researching about it. Read few articles, read few viewpoints, read few writers. Just don't go by one. Let's say I spoke about discipline. Go ahead, do some research, do where it is. Start reading some articles from Harvard, from Forbes, from other sources, right? There are a lot of sources available right now. A lot of webinars are happening. Start following leaders on LinkedIn. You will see a lot of them coming in and doing free webinars, free audio sessions. Search for organizations like NASCOM and others, right? Go ahead and listen to those audios and those videos, those podcasts. It may not make sense immediately for you because you still have to go out in the world, in the corporate world, but it'll be helpful, right? Whatever you listen, whatever you read, you will retain a part of it, and that will really help you, right? So start reaching out and start reading. So that's my key message to you guys.
So we'll take up the last question from the audience. They're asking how to maintain the discipline professionally. Like we have consumed the discipline, now how to maintain it for years.
Okay, so how do you maintain it? Okay, so see, one part is self motivation. The other part is the organization part that I spoke about. But I'll tell you simply, when you talk about discipline, start doing small things, very small things. Uh, Again, a very interesting example, and this is what I've heard from one of my friends. So his elder brother joined one of the telecom companies, and if I remember, that was in Jaipur, maybe. So one of the regional lead, right, in that office, he used to keep loose change and some ready shavers in his drawer. So people not coming in shaved, right? He used to just take out the razor, loose change, give it to them, and give them half an hour's time to go shave and clean up and come. So these are small things that you need to focus on. Ensure that your shoes are polished. This is a small thing. If there is a session, if you have to read somebody, you have to read, meet somebody, be there 5 minutes. Don't be 15 minutes before time, because that is also going to be rude, but be there 5 minutes before time. So these are small things, right? What language are you using when you're talking to people? That is very key, right? It doesn't matter you're talking in English or Hindi. It really doesn't. Just see the forum, just see the platform and talk in that. But what words you are using, what vocab you are using, right? It need not be very heavy vocab, jargons, right? You need to, keep it simple for people, right? So these are the very small things. Body language, your temper in sessions, right? So I'll tell you, I'm pretty short tempered when it comes to dealing with people and work, because the problem is I keep a very high standard for myself, and then I end up doing that with others as well. So over a period of time, what has started happening is, when I get into that zone where I'm losing it, I just disconnect myself if from a call, or if I'm in a meeting room, I just step out for a bit, ask for a break and step out. Give myself few minutes, right, to calm down and then go back in. So these are the few things, right? Again, very real life, uh, personal experience that I've also learned from. So start doing small things, and then it will become part of your life, and it's going to be unconsciously you will start doing it. You will start consciously making all these things, but then it will be unconscious, it will be part of your life.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I will take this deep opportunity to express my gratitude to IIIM College for organizing Dharohar webinar series, a platform where you can connect and share with such experiences and insights. Thank you.
Thank you all.